Ninevites, because they were evil and battled and struggled with God a great deal in his personal relationship with Him. You know who didn't hold a grudge, but between these two probably was the most justified? That was Joseph. He didn't hold a grudge. His brothers wanted to kill him, ended up selling him into slavery, and he was put in a grand palace over many people. Things worked out better for him. Grudges keep us from loving and forgiving someone as Christ has instructed us to do. So today, let's look at what we should do about the grudges that we sometimes hold. First off, of course, what is a grudge? Now, we're going to assume that we are all mature enough to move past minor incidences that sometimes plague us, things that happen between strangers. But today I want us to focus more on those more permanent, those more resonant relationships that surround us, a family or friend, a family member perhaps. You thought you could trust them. You depended on them. They hurt your feelings in a real way and they disappointed you. And now there is this gap between you. They proved that they weren't who you thought they were or who they should be. And now you're angry with them. You're bitter with them. Trust is damaged, if not lost altogether. This is our focus this morning. Momentous events, you might say, where forgiveness on your part is necessary, but even now it seems near impossible because the grudge has just overtaken your heart and hardened it to such an extent that you struggle. You struggle with letting go. You struggle with forgiving. That's why this lesson today is so important. Should we forgive? Yes. We all know that's the Bible answer to that question, but you have a grudge because you are human. A grudge starts out with a negative event. Somebody says or does something, and in your heart you know you are moving towards forgiveness. You want to go in that direction, and a grudge is actually a natural part of that. Because when the negative event happens, you're going to feel bad for a while. You're going to be angry. You're going to feel disappointment. All of those are fine. Those are natural reactions to a negative event as we move on towards forgiveness. That's how it should occur. That's the natural order of things. However, what do we do with that bridge sometimes? We set it ablaze. We set that bridge ablaze because I'm not forgiving that person. I can't do it. So I'm not going to forgive them. I'm not going to reach that point. I know in my mind that I should, but in my heart it's just too difficult. Hopefully today we can move past that. A grudge is a tool. It's also a weapon. That's why that we say we hold on to it. It's something that we are going to use later on. We want justice. We want that person to hurt the same way we hurt. But the issue is when we are judge, jury, and executioner, this blocks our ability to see the future results of our actions because we are reacting emotionally out of hurt rather than out of a place of forgiveness or grace such as has been shown to us. So we don't see where this grudge, of this using of our grudge, will take us because, and guess what? You're on that bridge too. That's what we forget sometimes, is that you're on that bridge as well. It hurts the other person, but it hurts you, perhaps in some ways even greater, because not all people who are involved in a relationship like this actually know what's going on. Some have even said that holding a grudge is like being stung to death by a single bee. Bitterness also is the feeling that accompanies a grudge. Grudge is the mental state, the hard heart. Bitterness is the feeling that we have when we have a grudge. It's also been said that bitterness is the alcoholism of the emotional realm, of the emotional world. We use bitterness to try and feel better, but it never results in what we think it will. We are tempted to be bitter. And we desire to do so because in that bitterness we think that it will beat back the pain of frustration, the pain of disappointment and despair. It's a natural occurrence. Someone wrongs us, well, they need their justice. They need to get what is coming back at them. And so this is a natural occurrence, but it doesn't work. Just like the alcoholic who thinks, well, if I drink more, I'll feel better, and he doesn't, and his state later is worse than whenever he started. Bitterness is the exact same way. Cain's bitterness took him to a place of murder. Jonah's bitterness took him to a place God did not want him to go. It was Joseph who said in his potential bitterness that he had, I love my brothers and I love my people. God has put me here to help them, so I'm going to move past those things and I am going to forgive them. We don't like these negative feelings. That's part of it. Something 100%, let's say 100% is the other person's fault. What they did has brought about on you pain and all these other emotions of disappointment and despair. We don't like those feelings, so guess what? We get angry. We get angry because at least with anger, there is some power. Whenever we feel anger, we want to lash out at the person, and again, we think it's going to help, but indeed it doesn't. All that it does is it gives the devil an opportunity. Ephesians chapter 4 and verse 27. And Paul tells the church at Ephesus, be ye angry and sin not. Don't let the sun go down on your wrath. And do not, the next verse, verse 27, do not give the devil an opportunity. Holding a grudge, if nothing else, gives the devil an opportunity. But in the end, things only get worse because bitterness and anger cannot fix what is causing you pain. So we must move past the anger. We must move past the bitterness and ask this question. Why is a grudge so powerful? Grudges happen and they are powerful because you always remember how someone made you feel. If you have a good interaction with someone, you're going to remember that person for as long as you may live. If someone's mean to you, if someone mistreats you, you will remember that. You might not remember exactly what happened, but you will always remember how someone made you feel. That is why grudges are so very powerful. That's why we've got to be careful to be nice to others so that they don't have a grudge right back at us. When someone wrongs us, we feel slighted. We feel put at a disadvantage. We feel disempowered, treated poorly, threatened, or placed in an unfair situation due to something that someone did. And this results in these other emotions, anger and resentment, frustration, deeply hurt with no way to express ourselves, unable to forgive and love as instructed. So we get angry once again. Anger is a very powerful emotion. And we go in that direction rather than one of forgiveness. A grudge is so powerful because after the hurtful event, there's that primal urge to regain control, to demonstrate power, and to ultimately self-preserve. That's what it's about. Someone hurt your feelings, someone wronged you, and you've got to come back out on top rather than just letting it go. In power struggles, quite often we call it dropping the rope. Letting go of that rope so that you can stop with that power struggle, but perhaps find a different avenue. And remember, while you're trying to regain whatever control it is you thought you had, remember that the only person you can control is yourself. A lot of times we will say, that person, they made me mad. They did? I understand where you're coming from. But did they make you hate them? Did they make you call them names? Did they make you post evil things, hateful, hurtful things about them on the internet? Did they make you do all those things, or was that your decision? Because the only person you have control over is you. Regardless of what other people do, you are in charge of how you react, and that is extremely powerful. Because controlling other people is impossible. Controlling yourself in many ways is probably even more difficult, but when you can control yourself, you can do things so much better for yourself and for your life. Some people say, just to forget it. Don't let them bother you. But this is easier said than done. Even if someone has hurt you unintentionally and without malice, it's very difficult to forget how they made you feel. Because we can't simply wish away reactions or anger or frustration after feeling offended. We can't just say, okay, poof, and it's gone. No, we have to go through that bridge process that I showed you a moment ago. We have to cross that bridge in order to get to forgiveness. It is some time that is taken for us to forgive. So in other words, to calm down, we must identify why we are so upset. We know we're angry, but there's something deeper, something more at the heart of the matter. And when we get to that, we can more effectively handle our emotions. So let's look inwardly now and consider Scripture to help us heal from the grudges that many of us suffer from. There are 5 reasons grudges happen. And we're going to talk about what we should do about each one. The first reason grudges happen is because of misunderstandings and assumptions. A grudge may develop from this because of what you tell yourself about a situation. You ever have a negative interaction with someone, right at the end of the day at work or something like that, or at school, and while you go home you just replay that over and over and over again. Oh, I should have said this. I should have told him this. I should have brought that up. And just all day long it's playing in your brain, even on into the night, and it keeps you up. And it's all because of what you're telling yourself. It's that inner dialogue that we have with ourselves. We assume, oftentimes in these situations, that the others are angry towards us or think negatively of us, when this is not always the case. Perhaps you had an altercation. Perhaps you had a conflict with someone. But quite often, the negative feelings that then subsequently follow after that are all because of what you are telling yourself. The answer here is don't assume the worst. Don't assume the worst of other people, but rather expect the best from them. Because if your interaction was probably less than 3 minutes long and it was negative and caused you to feel a certain way and you're carrying that feeling with you, guess what? When you start talking to yourself at 3 o'clock, having that inner dialogue, and you're still going over it at 3 a.m., that's 12 hours, much longer than the actual interaction. And all you're doing is assuming things and going over things in your head that are made up essentially, and we then become our own worst enemy. We have to start expecting the best from other people, especially ourselves. John chapter 7 verse 24, do not judge according to appearance, but judge with righteous judgment. Think the best of people. Judge accordingly. Be a discerning individual, okay? But don't let misunderstandings, don't let assumptions run your life, because indeed it can ruin a day and especially a good night's sleep. The next cause of grudges are unrealistic expectations. You trusted someone, you thought you could depend on them, and they failed you. They failed Jesus. And this hurts deeply. So stop holding people accountable for who they used to be or who you think they should be, or in fact that they should be perfect. Absolutely. Stop holding people to such a high standard. We often think that people are all good or all bad. This is called all or nothing thinking. And it ignores the complexities of relationships and the complexity of humans, because we're not animals. If you ever meet a bear in the forest, that bear is going to do one of two things. He's going to eat you, or he's going to leave you alone. Those are the two things that bear is going to do. He's not going to tell you a joke. He's not going to gaslight you. He's not going to show you his collection of football cards. He's not going to do anything of that. He is going to eat you or leave you alone. Perhaps that's why Proverbs says this, because humans are a bit more complex. Let a man meet a bear robbed of her cubs rather than a fool in his folly. Mankind is so very complex in his thinking and in his emotions. And we must accept that. We don't always like that answer. Well, they should have, or he should have, or she should have, or could have, or would have. Got a bad case there of the supposed to's. They're supposed to do that. They're supposed to do this. Those are unrealistic expectations. Now, we shouldn't expect that people are going to always disappoint us. We shouldn't do that. But we should also, though, look at people as sinners. Look at people as fallible individuals, because we're much more difficult than that. Many of us have high expectations for others, and when they don't deliver on that, we become insulted, disappointed, disenchanted, angry. And sometimes we have to deal with the trail of destruction they leave behind. That's the other reason that falls into this category for our grudges. We expected someone to do better, to be better, and they don't. And now we've got to fix it. In my experience, it is often the emotionally generous among us, those who love the most, those who want to give, who are so vulnerable to these experiences. You give a lot of yourself and are strengthened when others around you are working as diligently, because we have a synergy there. 2 + 2 = 5, because we're worth more together than we are apart. And you have high standards for yourself, and when that same standard isn't met by others who are fully capable of doing so, you become hurt. And it's damaging to the relationship, and it's damaging to you spiritually, because why did they leave me? Why did they leave Jesus? Here's the answer to this one. Realize you're working with humans who are messy wrecks. You're walking along with them. And that's good. That's the great thing about fellowship. That's the great thing about working together, about having deacons, elders, talented women, talented people who are in this good congregation. It's about working together. But there will be moments, sometimes, that it will only be you and Jesus. And make sure that combination's always there, where it's not just you. Proverbs 19:11. A man's discretion makes him slow to anger. Be discreet. Be discerning when you're around people, and expect things from them. But people are going to mess up. Even the best of us will. Because it is His glory to overlook a transgression. Don't assume you've been intentionally mistreated. When others fail to treat you the way you think they should, it's really more about them than it is you quite often. So don't respond sinfully to their problem. Because it is only by the grace of God that they are who they are, but also the same can be said of you. The third reason we hold judges is we oftentimes feel unappreciated. You ever feel used, ignored, or unappreciated? We all enjoy being validated. We all enjoy getting approval. But you have contacted a friend numerous times who only responds when he or she needs you. Or you didn't receive an invitation to a fun group activity. I don't think any of us celebrates feeling unacknowledged or unappreciated because we don't like being invisible. But this brings us back to number one, where it could be a misunderstanding. Perhaps the friend forgot. Perhaps the friends thought you would not want to come along. And this is how multiple grudges, multiple reasons can just fuel things. But we are really wanting, in this particular instance, to get the approval of men. But what does Galatians 1 say? For am I now seeking the favor of men or of God, or am I striving to please men? If I were still trying to please men, I would not be a bondservant of Christ. The short answer of this is, do your best, believe and have confidence and faith that Jesus is pleased with you, and then what happens between you and other people is simply what happens. But be there for God and be a servant and a light for Christ. The fourth reason we hold grudges is being disgusted or reaching a limit with people, because people will hurt you. Maybe you are right. The person is selfish, not reciprocating the relationship like you think they should. Sometimes we have experienced a number of hurtful interactions with others, and then we reach our own personal threshold for what we can tolerate. I see this in relationships a lot, where just one part of the relationship, one person in that, is holding it up. And it's very difficult on that one person, and their energy can actually be drained. So what do we need to do? We need to realize that people are fallible. We should all work to be the best that we can be, but James 3:2 says we all stumble in many ways. We must remember that. You might reach your patience limit with someone, but realize that we're all imperfect. Let's look at Matthew 18, please. Of these four answers that I have shown you, they all involve forgiveness. And that's the answer to a grudge, is forgiveness. And it's obvious. You mess up sometimes. We all do. And when you see someone messing up, they might sin differently than you, but they still mess up. Matthew chapter 18 and verse 23. For this reason the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a king who wished to settle accounts with his slaves. When he had begun to settle them, one who owed him 10,000 talents was brought to him. That's an insurmountable wage at the time. But since he did not have the means to repay, his Lord commanded him to be sold, along with his wife and children, and all that he had, and repayment to be made. He can't get the money from him, so he's going to get the money out of him. Verse 26, so the slave fell to the ground and prostrated himself before him, saying, have patience with me, and I will repay you everything. And the Lord of that slave felt compassion and released him, and forgave the debt. Forgave the debt, said, you don't owe me that anymore, and released him. Verse 28, but that slave went out and found one of his fellow slaves who owed him 100 denarii. And he seized him and began to choke him, saying, pay back what you owe. So his fellow slave fell to the ground and began to plead with him, saying, have patience with me, and I will repay you. But he was unwilling, and went and threw him in prison until he should pay back what was owed. So when this fellow slave saw what had happened, they were deeply grieved, and came and reported to their Lord all that had happened. Then summoning him, his Lord said to him, you wicked slave, I forgave you all that debt because you pleaded with me. Should you not also have had mercy on your fellow slave in the same way I had mercy on you? And this Lord, moved with anger, handed him over to the torturers until he should repay all that was owed him. How many times have you done the exact same thing you were mad at the other person about? How many times? If in a very minimal way, can you not say that you stumble in many ways, and there are constantly people who want to forgive you and you want them to forgive you, and they need to, but now the tables are reversed, and now you must forgive someone. That's what this parable is all about. That the first slave, he begged for forgiveness, and he got it. He got it with no strings attached. The king, wiped him clean. But then he goes out and can't forgive others himself. We must be willing to forgive the grudge that we have against someone. But you know, Dale, the person who wronged me has lessons to learn as well. Indeed, they do. That's what all my other sermons are about. Right now, this sermon is about those Christians who have some good things going on with them with their Christian faith, but it's this one thing they lack: to forgive those who have wronged them. Our fifth reason grudges happen is envy. Relationships go bad. Person A has good things happen to them, and person B experiences envy over this. And grudges become entrenched here. What is the answer? 1 Corinthians chapter 13, please. Let's look there. When you are envious of someone because of their good fortune, remember this passage if you really love that person. Because quite often when someone is sad, well, sure, we're willing to help them then, we're willing to be around them then, but when good starts happening, I don't know about this, and this grudge starts coming up, and you might not even realize it, but it does happen. 1 Corinthians 13 and verse 4, love is patient, love is kind, and is not jealous. Love does not brag, and is not arrogant, does not act unbecomingly, does not seek its own, is not provoked, does not take into account a wrong suffered, does not rejoice in unrighteousness, but rejoices with the truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. When you are envious of someone, remember that you should be loving them. When you have a grudge against someone, remember that you should be loving them. For that is the answer to all of these. Love them and forgive them, and then move on. And love them as though nothing ever happened, because that's what Jesus has done for us. I'll conclude with Ephesians chapter 4. I've mentioned the first two verses here, verse 26 and 27. Be angry and yet do not sin. We often think, that's about us being angry with our spouse. I'm going to be angry and I'm not going to sin. I'm not going to go to bed mad. And those are good lessons there to be sure. But there's also the lesson of don't be angry at people because of these grudge reasons. Because that's going to give the devil an opportunity, verse 27. Opportunity for revenge, an opportunity for pride to kick in, opportunity for envy. Don't let those grudges happen. Verse 31. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving each other, just as God in Christ also has forgiven you. There's somebody today you need to forgive. Come forward and we can pray with you for that. Or perhaps you need to be forgiven as Christ has forgiven you. We can assist you with that as well if you want to come forward. And we can pray for you for whatever struggles you may have. Or if you're not a Christian, you need to become one today. Just believing in Jesus, that doesn't get it all done. The people asked in Acts chapter 2, what shall we do? Repent and be baptized, was what Peter said. Start living faithfully today by becoming a Christian, being baptized into a watery grave and come up that new person that the Scripture tells us about. If you don't want to come forward now, that's fine. We can talk outside in the lobby in just a moment. But if you have a need, please come now as we stand.